Hello. Welcome back to Chit Chatting with Kate Carr. In today's video, we're going to be chit-chatting about r/ghost stories. Ooh, while sipping on a delicious coffee made by moi. This goes for all my videos, but especially the month of October. We're in the spooky season. If you have any of your own spooky stories, send me a email, drop a comment below. I would love to hear your stories, especially ghost stories, because I've had my fair share of ghostly stories in my lifetime. So I would love to hear from your guys' personal stories, as always. And be sure to also like, comment, share, subscribe. That way that YouTube knows that you're enjoying these spooky content that I'm creating. So this first story is titled Mimic, a True Story. A guy named Sam lived in the city and rented a 2-bedroom apartment because he hated to be alone. He moved in with a lady and her young son. One afternoon, she told Sam she had experienced something and she was very afraid. One night, while walking to the bathroom, she saw a tall, naked man walk down the hallway and turn into the kitchen. Sam asked, "Where did that tall man start from?" She said it looks like he was coming out of his room. She was terrified and ran into the bathroom. When she exited the bathroom, she didn't see the tall man. Neither Sam or the woman had anyone over. Sam said that he felt like he was being watched, but dismissed it as being childish. The lady stayed at his apartment for a few months and nothing else happened to her. She worked second shift and he worked days. Sam would be asleep when she came home, and Sam would wake up to her sitting on the floor in his room. She would just talk away. He figured it just made her feel safe, so he didn't complain. He kind of enjoyed it himself. This carried on for a few months. Then the lease was up and it was time to move. The woman had rented a place with her new boyfriend. Sam thanked the lady for helping him pay rent and all that good stuff. He also thanked her for the late night talks and said he was going to miss them. She was confused and didn't know what he was talking about. She said she usually goes into her bedroom, and why would I be in yours, she said. Sam had no clue why she would be in denial. Sometime later, he thought about the tall, skinny man and wondered if that's who he had been talking to. Somehow, he looked exactly like her, and that's nuts. Or maybe Sam just lost his mind? A trickster ghost? A demon, maybe? Either way, Sam never slept the same again. I'm Sam, by the way. I just changed my name. So I've never personally encountered a mimic, thank God, but I know people who have, and I've seen plenty of videos that talk about the mimic situation. If you don't know what that is, it's literally a supernatural being, some sort of being in whatever other life that literally morphs into people or sounds or maybe even animals like around you to make you think that you're, again, just like Sam's story, you're talking to the person that you think you're talking to or whatever the case is, but they basically morph into, they mimic what the person is or the thing is that you are attracted to, and I guess try to get into like your realm of world by mimicking those things and helping and kind of making you like maybe go off different paths. I don't know how deep these mimics go, but I just know that it is so scary, and the comments agree with me with that. Side note, if you caught one of my last videos, I talked about the Not Your Mother's Curl Gel Styling Gel. I got the 3-hold, I believe, but I just washed and scrunched my hair again, and honestly, I've been loving it. I'm almost done out of the little, I got like a little travel one to test it out. I think the next one I want to get, I'm going to make like a little bit of a stronger hold, because when it does dry, it keeps the hold of the curls, but I would like it to be a little bit longer. But if you're looking for a little wavy hair scrunching gel, I really like the purple. It's purple, I believe. Not Your Mother's Firm Hold Gel. So just if you wanted an update from my last video. The missing things. It started with the small stuff. My keys, my phone charger, even the remote for the TV. It all seemed to vanish when I needed them the most, only to turn up in the strangest places later on. At first, I brushed it off. I live alone, so there's no one else to misplace my things. I figured I was just getting careless, overworked maybe. But the more it happened, the more I started to wonder if something was off. It began innocently enough. I'd come home from work, toss my keys on the kitchen counter like I always did, and go about my evening. But when I went to go grab them the next morning, they wouldn't be there. I'd scour the house, searching through drawers, behind cushions, even checking the chair. Nothing. Hours later, I find them in places I would have never put them. On the bathroom sink, under my bed, even inside the refrigerator once. Side note, I literally always do that. I will not doubt myself about putting something in the fridge. I always look in the fridge if I'm looking for something. Honestly, most of the time it doesn't end up in the fridge, but I never know because that's one possibility of a place that it could be, so I get you a P. I laughed it off the first few times. I'm getting old, I joked to myself. I'm losing my mind. But then, it wasn't funny anymore. The remote was next to go. I'm not much of a TV person, but I'll watch the occasional late night movie. I distinctly remember setting the remote down on the coffee table after watching something forgettable. The next evening, the remote was gone. I tore the room apart, cushions overturned, drawers open, shelves emptied, still nothing. 2 days passed and I found it under the bed. Not beside the bed, under it, deep in the corner where I never would have placed it. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling crept on me. A strange and uneasy one. Like someone had been in my house. Like I wasn't alone. But the doors were always locked. The windows always shut. No signs of forced entry. No one else had a key. It was just me, wasn't it? Then my shoes went missing. The pair I wear every day. I came home from work, slipped them on at the front door like always, and went to bed. The next morning, gone. I found them 2 days later, perfectly placed in my closet. The thing is, I never keep them in my closet. I always left them by the door. That's when the paranoia starts. I began wondering if maybe somebody was coming to my house when I wasn't there. Some weirdo slipping in, moving things around just to mess with me. I even considered setting up a camera, but something about the idea made me just feel stupid. Who would break in just to hide my stuff? It had to be me, right? Maybe stress was getting to me. Maybe I was just losing control. But it got worse. My wallet was the first major item to disappear. I remember leaving it in the kitchen counter before bed. When I woke up, it was gone. I tore the house apart again. I checked the car, my jacket pockets, even the trash. Days passed, and I was ready to cancel my cards when it finally showed up. Under a pile of books on my nightstand. I didn't put it there. I know I didn't. And then, my phone went missing. I always kept it on the nightstand when I slept. Always. But one morning, it was gone. Just gone. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept picturing someone creeping into my room while I slept, reaching for my phone, maybe standing there, watching me. I stayed up, pacing the house, listening for the faintest creak of the floorboards, watching the shadows move across the walls, but no one came. It took a week to find my phone. I found it under the couch, wedged so deep between the cushions as if somebody deliberately pushed it there. My heart raced as I held it in my hand. This was no mistake. Someone was toying with me. But how? Why? I finally gave in and set up cameras. Just 2. One in the living room, one in the hallway facing my bedroom door. If someone was coming to my house, I would catch them. But that night, something even worse happened. Oh my god, this is like longer than I expected, but this is like, whether this is a urban legend, a fairy tale, or whatever, I'm in it. And compared to a lot of writings on Reddit, you're a great writer, OP. I woke up in the middle of the night to a sound, a soft, distant thud. I froze in bed, my heart pounding in my chest, straining to hear it again. And then it came. Another quiet thud, like something being moved. I got up, grabbed the nearest object for protection, a broom of all things, and crept through the house. Nothing. No one. But when I went to check the camera footage the next morning, the files were gone, completely erased. My blood ran cold. I didn't sleep the next night, or the night after that. I stopped eating properly. I didn't trust myself anymore. Could have been me all along? Moving things, hiding things, losing things? Was I erasing the footage without realizing it? I stopped going to work, stopped leaving the house entirely. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was inside, waiting for me to leave, waiting to rearrange my life, to push me further toward the edge. Then one morning, I woke up to find something on the kitchen counter, something that I haven't seen in days. My phone. But it wasn't the phone that terrified me. No. What chilled me to my core was the text message open on the screen. Found it yet? It wasn't my text. It wasn't my message. Then I realized with a sickening dread, that I was never alone in the first place. And maybe I would never be. Wow. There's not many comments on this, but basically people also saying that they've experienced something similar, but then also that it was nicely written. So like I said, whether this is a made-up story or not, that was creepy, and I liked that like amount of story, like that length of story. That was a good one, OP. I liked it, and it was creepy, and I'm creeped out a little bit. Maybe you should submit this to scary stories to tell in the dark. And also, like, I get it, literally probably going crazy. When you can't find something that you know for a fact, like, could be somewhere, and especially if you have somewhere that you put things all the freaking time, like, I could see how that literally is driving you insane. And if this is some sort of, like, ghostly thing or supernatural, or this is real or whatever, I feel so sorry for OP, because that literally, like, that circle and cycle of driving yourself insane, especially when things just keep popping up randomly in the most random spots, like, maybe you need somebody to go in your house and cleanse it a bit. The little boy I seen when I was 5. Scary and creepy little kids is a whole nother level of creepiness, so I'm excited for the story. And excited meaning a little creeped out and a little terrified. As the title says, I was around 5 at the time. My babysitter had just laid down to go to sleep. I was one of those kids that needed something to fall asleep, and mine was to play with hair, as gross as it might sound to some people. I'd say it's around 10 or 11, and my mom was out for the night, being deadly, and of course the kid I was missing her. So I was having a tough time to fall asleep. Me and the babysitter were lying there for about 5 to 10 minutes before she had to use the washroom. We were sleeping in my mom's room, which was the master bedroom with a queen-size bed, that if you laid down, you could see inside the bedroom till the toilet. So the babysitter swings open the door, and I'm resting my eyes, and all I hear her say was, "Hey, are you looking for your family?" My head shot up from the pillow, and there was a kid, probably the same age as I was, standing there smiling. Not in a creepy way, in an innocent way. No, this is creepy. He was sort of glowing, not too much, but you could tell he wasn't a normal kid. So as he smiles, he runs out the room and laughs while we follow and hear footsteps down the stairs. We stand at the top of the stairs, both shocked and scared of what we just witnessed. I believe she called my mom, and I didn't sleep that well that night. I have a theory to who that kid was. Either before or after I was born, my mom had an abortion with my biological father. Jeez. Okay, this is like a little deep. I'm gonna go past this. I'm so sorry, OP, but like, I'm sure. Yeah, that's a little deep. I'm sorry. I believe that was the last time I seen him, and honestly, it feels like he may have found peace in the afterlife since I haven't seen him since. I'll have many more stories coming because stuff like this happens to me a lot. To me, my siblings, and my mother growing up. So OP thinks that this is his sibling from the afterlife, and I think that's a sweet thing to think of, especially if the little boy wasn't terrifying. Honestly, the story is a lot scarier sounding, I guess, than it ends up being. But I was interested too, because I was wondering if it's maybe the house was haunted basically overall by a little kid, and that kid like stayed there. It was like a residual type of spirit that just like lived in there. So I actually came across a comment that said the same thing. Was the house old? Could a family been there before you guys, like peeking in another time dimension? But OP responded and said that his mom's ex-husband built it before he was born, and maybe it might have had some graves around it. So that's interesting to think about too. If, yeah, maybe it could be OP's sibling from the afterlife, or it could be something that's lurking around the grounds where they buried, or where they built this house. Let me know what you think. Ghost skeptics and non-believers, this might change your mind. This title stood out to me because I always have been, and I always will be, a ghost believer. I am not a skeptic. I 1000% believe in those dimensions and whatever type of spirit things going on. That's my thoughts, and my thoughts only, my opinions. This is my channel, and this is what I believe in. So seeing this title, I was like, I wonder what the story is really going to be like, because I also am around people who are skeptics. So I understand skeptics also, and I respect the skepticism. But when something happens to you, if anything ever happens to you, like ghostly wise, that's when you really, I have a skeptic in my life that basically is so against it, but then like something small happens and he's like, but it like then like pushes it off, of course. But then in my mind, I'm like, what are you thinking? But let's get into the story. I read these stories a lot, and I do have my own stories, but before I do, I wanted to first make this post, which I can really help to explain a lot of these ghost stories. Many of these stories are very similar, such as that the feeling of being watched, or just the very strange feeling that things take place. I always did have this sensitivity towards energy around me. It's the same feeling when something negative comes into the room and everyone else sort of feels like this slight downward shift in energy. There is a little bit of quantum physics and science involved. It's tough to explain, but energy is very real, and according to the laws of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. We are essentially energies. Particles come together so tightly. These particles vibrate, move so quickly, it's invisible to the naked eye. Instead, we see what it forms, the whole mass of a body, a person. So we're all just moving blobs of energy, and one day we die. If we're just energy, and it cannot be created or destroyed, it suggests that some part of us after death is transferred. The physical body may die, but the energy which drove our every movement is instantly transferred. Some of this potential energy is harvested from our corpse by insects and other creepy crawlers. But what about the essence of who we are? That is the part of us which some of us call the soul, or the life force which powered us into the person we are. This is the part of our essence that is released into the universe, which would align with the laws of both physics and parapsychology? Parapsychology? I think that's the word. There are also many different types of apparitions. Based on the moon, which is a direct source of energy for ghosts, apparitions can be anything from a orb of light to a full body apparition. In between those are thick masses of floating energy or item shifting. The more evident sightings usually always take place when the moon is almost full. It's also the best time to see full apparitions. We don't know why they linger, but my theory is that they must have had some unfinished business influencing their transition to the other realm. Perhaps they are also unaware that they have died. Some may also be in denial. Others may be violent entities seeking to preserve something so much darker. It could also be the visitation of friendly ghosts, but this is usually only in the first 40 days after death. It is believed that the soul remains on the earth for 40 days before it fully crosses over to the other side. I find these stories very fascinating, and someday I'll write my own. I just wanted to post this for anyone, ideally skeptics, who could gain further insight behind this strange phenomenon. But yes, paranormal activity is very real. Ghosts do exist, but most will claim these entities are actually called jinn, which is the Arabic word for angels, genies, invisible beings that appear like shadows. It is believed that jinns coexist with humans, but they are in the shadow realm. Some are kind, but others can be very dangerous and violent. This also aligns with many stories I have read. Many people here have reported seeing shadow figures that they couldn't exactly define or capture with certainty. Ghosts, jinns, angels, ectoplasm, whatever it is, it's real. The world is full of so many unexplainable things, but one thing is for sure. Our energy cannot die. We all learned this in school. That means when our body dies, we'll most likely just be hopping out of one vessel and entering another. Pretty creepy stuff. Okay, so this post was actually pretty interesting. I didn't realize that they wrote very well, honestly, but I didn't think they were gonna go into like the science of it all and stuff, which honestly, like reading it, to me personally, that was very interesting. It's a really interesting way to look at it. I am not going to say that this person has all the facts or anything, but I'll just say that they're really interesting, and if you are a skeptic, you know, maybe there's other things to look into, or if you don't want to, then obviously don't do it. But like, I just thought this post was interesting. The more I read it, I honestly was about to stop reading it and find another story to replace it, but then I was like, actually no, this is actually pretty interesting. I think at least. So thanks for sharing, OP. The figure on the porch. I've never been into the paranormal. I don't think of myself as somebody who is easily spooked, and I've never had any interest in ghost stories. That's why what happened to me at my grandparents' house last year still bothers me. I can't explain it, and it doesn't fit into how I normally think. Last summer, I stayed at their house for a couple of weeks to help out with some yard work and to spend some quality time with them. They live in a very small, rural town, and their house is old. I don't know the exact history of it, but it's been in the family for a long time. It's one of those houses that creaks at night, and while I was there, it always felt kind of musty and quiet, but I didn't think much of it. One night, around 2 or 3 a.m., if you know, you know, that's literally the ghosty hours, I woke up unexpectedly. I wasn't startled awake or anything. I just opened my eyes, fully awake for no apparent reason. I figured it was just restless, so I just laid there and tried to go back to sleep. I was in the guest room, and my grandparents were sleeping in their room down the hall. The house was completely silent. Then, I heard what sounded like footsteps outside the window on the front porch. It wasn't loud or frantic, but slow, steady steps, like someone was pacing back and forth. The house is on a quiet street. Side note, on a quiet street, if you've ever read that. Or if you haven't read it, I should say, you need to read it. The house is on a quiet street, and I remember thinking it was weird that somebody would be walking around at that time of night. I got up and looked out of the window, but nobody was there. The porch was empty, lit by a street lamp, but the footsteps didn't stop. I stood there for a few seconds, just listening. The sound seemed like it was right there, but I couldn't see anything. It was unnerving, but I convinced myself that it had to be something like the house settling or an animal outside. Eventually, the footsteps stopped, and I went back to bed. The next morning, I casually mentioned to my grandmother that I thought I heard someone walking on the porch at night. I didn't expect her to take it seriously, but she paused and looked at me for a second before saying, "You probably heard her." I asked her what she meant, and she explained that over the years, several people have mentioned hearing footsteps on the porch at night. Sometimes they even see a figure standing at the far end, but nobody could ever make out the details. She said it's been happening as long as she could remember, and her only explanation is that it's the spirit of somebody who used to live in the house before them. She said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal, which threw me off. That's me. I'll say stuff sometimes, and then the reactions I'll get, I'm just like, oh, maybe I should, sensitize myself a little bit. I've never seen my grandmother as a superstitious type, but she genuinely believed there was something strange about those footsteps. She told me not to worry, that whoever it was, they didn't seem harmful. Just a presence that made itself known once in a while. I didn't hear footsteps again during the rest of my stay, but the experience has stuck with me. I still don't know what to make out of it. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts, but it was real enough that I haven't been able to explain it anyway. That was an interesting story, especially that was an unintentional transition with skeptics. So this person was clearly a skeptic, or maybe just not even thinking about the paranormal world. But it's a very, very interesting story because it's just something that lurks around, and the grandma's even just like, yep, that's Susie Beth from, 1942. Yeah, even though it's nice, it's still very creepy because the grandma clearly, she's the one that lives there and she's unbothered. She's like, yeah, that's just like Peggy Sue. And, it's kind of nice because maybe it was somebody who lived there and, they just loved having their morning coffee on their porch. I don't blame them. I would come back on my morning porch if I was them too, and just they probably don't know what time it is. That's why they're lurking at 3 in the morning. Maybe they're in a different time zone in their head, in their spirit realm. So I'm not glad that you got a little spooked out. Not even that spooked out. They were just kind of confused and curious, but I'm kind of glad that it's sticking with you because it's it's just one of those experiences that just make you think, and you're just that happened. That really happened, and you're just thinking about it for the rest of your life. So, OP, thank you for sharing. Okay, so this is the last Reddit story, but I'm thinking I'm going to tell my own personal story at the end because this title sticks out to me and just my personal life. I'm 25 female, and I've got a few strange stories from my childhood that I think would fit perfectly here. This is my first post sharing these experiences. I grew up outside the US in a large, old 4-story house. While I never personally saw an apparition in the house, I did have some intense experiences, and many other people did too. One of the most common stories I was told about involved a little girl who was frequently seen around the house. I've always believed in the paranormal, but since I've lived there, I never saw a little girl. I thought maybe people were exaggerating, that is, until my dad told me his story. One night, he woke me up in the middle of the night. I wonder if you guys heard that in my video. My door just creaked. I'm gonna assume that there's a window open somewhere, and we're just gonna move on. Now I'm giving myself the creeps. This is the last story, so I'm glad. One night, he woke up in the middle of the night. My mom had gotten up to use the bathroom and left the door slightly ajar, allowing a little bit of light to spill into the room. As my dad turned over, something in the room caught his eye. Standing in the middle of the room was a little girl. She was dressed in a white nightgown. No, instantly that set up, I'm like, no. Her face partially hidden by shadows. At first, he thought it was me since I was around 9 or 10 at the time. Then he remembered I wasn't even home that night. He said a chill ran through him, and not knowing what else to do, he simply turned over and pretended to go back to sleep. When my mom came back to bed, she didn't see anything out of the ordinary. That wasn't the last time someone mentioned seeing a little girl in the house, but it was one of my first moments that made me question if some things might be in the house. Out of curiosity, does anybody have any insights as to why so many people saw apparitions in my house, but neither my mom nor I ever did? I like, one, Again, anything with like children is just so creepy. Little kids are creepy. But I like the way that they ended this because they're like, OP and their mom have never seen this little girl, but like so many other people have like been like, yeah, no, I saw her, I get it. And I feel like there's just like not an answer for that, but maybe, you know, you guys just, it doesn't seem like OP was like super skeptical or anything. It's just like, you know, I'm just living life and, you know, I'm here to see if there's anything to be seen. And I'm assuming OP's mom was the same way, but maybe like the little girl just didn't like open herself up to you, or like, I don't know. That's a really interesting question. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't have an answer, but like, I don't know. That's just a very interesting short little story, which is going to make me think about my encounter of growing up in a haunted house. I feel like I have a lot of handful of stories, but I always have had that like feeling of like energy, like the last story told. I've always had a strong feeling of energies, especially in the houses that I grew up in my childhood. Two houses in particular stick out to me, but even like my best friend's childhood home growing up, like I would be in her house and like we would feel some crazy stuff. We would feel like just people like walking around, like you can just sense that type of stuff sometimes. And in like my childhood houses, I'm running to another room, especially if I'm turning off a light. Like I do not need to know what's in this darkness. I do not need to know what's in there. I've been through too many like weird feelings throughout my life that I'm just like, let me just move on. Let me just pretend that's behind me. Like I'm gonna speed out, see it, gotta go. Once you have those, like, it's like hard to explain. I think OP actually said it in one of the stories too, that when they were talking about energy, it's like hard to explain unless you feel it. You know, you feel somebody's energy, and if you don't, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But like, especially when you feel the energy when nobody's there and you for sure know that nobody's there. Like my family's home, like my mom's room is so haunted, and like there's neighbors that have told us stories before that are like, oh, like that used to be like a kitchen, and like the owners like would talk about like the cabinet slamming and like just like crazy stuff going on, and like that's my mom's bedroom now. Or like there was a mirror at one point when we first moved in, and our neighbors are like, don't hang that up, like let me take that for you, I'm a medium. Like maybe she just wanted the mirror. No, I believe her. She's like, no, like that mirror does not have any good stuff. And I believe in like the fact that mirrors hold energy too, so like I think the neighbor was looking out for us. But like there's just many like tidbit stories like here and there throughout my life that I totally am just a complete believer. And I understand like growing up in a haunted house, like just feeling that eerie feeling of like something being behind you, or getting that when you get those random chills, like there's a breeze in the air and you're just like, okay, where'd that come from? Because the air is not on, and like that was one breeze that just came over. Oh, this one other story, this one kind of sticks out to me in more of a more positive way, because I feel like with a lot of like haunting occasions that I've gone through like in my childhood, it was always more of like the semi like negative, because there was a lot of like stress and negative stuff going on in the places that I grew up. But it's so interesting that when you do feel these energies, like you can feel when it's like, you can truly feel like the different energies. Like me and my mom used to feel these really, really negative energies, and we knew who this person was based off of the place that we lived in, like the whole situation. But like we felt this really evil energy. And when I say evil, I mean evil. And like there's this whole connection to where like you smell certain like rotten smells when like evil spirits are around, like we smelled it. That's a whole different story. If you really want me, I can definitely go deeper into these stories. I'm already chatting so much about it that I don't want to keep this going too long. But then we would feel other presences that are really strong, but it's more of like this person said, like, or no, not this person, but it's more like the porch story where it's like, oh, it's just like a presence because this person lived here, or like they're just putting their grounds here and they don't mean any harm. They're literally just like, you don't need to chat, it's cool, I'm just here because this is like where I'm comfortable and where I'm at. And especially if you know the spirit, like it makes you feel a little bit more like comforting. Like for example, I was around, I think like 10 or 11 when my mom passed away, and one of the stories that I tell a lot, I feel like, and one of the things that always stick out to me when it comes to ghost stories is the night that she passed away. I remember my mom telling me like she passed away in the hospital, and I remember going to sleep and like crying because I missed her. You know, it was the day that it happened, and I had like my face towards the wall and my back open, and like I physically felt like, it kind of felt like my mom was like there to like kind of like cradle me and like oh, it's okay. wasn't my mom. But I'm here to say it was my mom being like, okay, like, I'm still here, sweetie. Because we were living in her house at that point, too. So, like, that was comforting, but I still felt like a heavy spiritual ghostly presence because, you know, you're passed down, you're in the overworld, you're a ghost now. Sorry, mom. So I was just like, all right, that was kind of creepy, but, like, I'm here for it. And then when we were creating, like, those, just, like, a poster board for her funeral, me and my mom were in the living room when we were putting this stuff together. And we took a break. I think we were like, just like crying because we were like, oh, we just put this all together. We miss her, blah, blah, blah. And we were sitting in her seat and she always sat in this one spot on the couch because she like couldn't move a lot. So like we were basically sitting in her spot. Me and my mom were just sitting on the couch. And all of a sudden we felt a heavy breeze. And then we freaking saw a handprint in my mom's jeans, clear as day. And I remember this, one, because of how vivid it was, but two, because of the fact that my mom, she ran. She left me in the dust. I'm pretty sure she elbowed me like by accident at one point too, but she left me in the dust. But we were kind of like, okay, that was really creepy. Like, mom, thank you. I see that you're here, but like, please don't touch us again because that was creepy. But it was so cool at the same time because it was just like staring at it and seeing it in real life. You're just like, that happened. And like it was literally like she just basically like kind of put her hand on my mom's jeans. It's like, I'm here, be comforted, girls. And we're just like, that was creepy. But it's nice when there are nice spirits. But like, you know what, we're just hoping that they're all nice spirits, you know. So I am all one for ghost stories, and I love watching Loey Lane specifically during this time of the year. I can only watch like that type of stuff during like spooky season. I don't know, I can't get into it when it's not spooky season. Like the second October's over, like I'll probably be over it. But I'm always down to talk about my own personal ghost stories, and I want to be down to talk about more about your guys' ghost stories. So with that all being said, if you have any, please again, be sure to send me them. I'm so interested in stories in general. That's why I like reading off of Reddit. But the more community that I gain on here, I would love to hear from you guys personally. I've gotten a couple stories already, and it makes me excited because that means that this is just growing, and it's just so cool to hear your guys' stories too. So if you guys would want me to explain more into depth with some ghost stories, let me know and I will put something together, or let me know your ghost story. That wraps up today's video. I'm so grateful that YouTube decided to sprinkle you into my algorithm. That way that it shows that you're enjoying the content that I'm creating, and I'm creating the content that I enjoy creating, and I enjoy that you enjoy watching the content that I'm creating. And I'm just making a tongue tie for myself, all in all, to say that I appreciate you so much, whether you are a new or returning viewer. As always, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. That way we can continue building this little gal pal community that we have over on this channel. Again, I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!